Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. I am Janay Edmonds, your host. Quick disclaimer, I am not a mental health professional. I am simply a woman who's on her own healing journey and who's sharing the lessons as well as the tools that I've learned through 6 years of going to therapy with you all in hopes that it will help you with your mental health. So, as I forestated earlier, today is National Fibromyalgia Awareness Day. And it's also the 5th year anniversary of Journeying with Janay. So it's a very special day. And I thought that today would be the perfect day to discuss living with chronic illness. So the title of today's episode is Living with Chronic Illness. There are so many chronic illnesses, not just fibromyalgia, it happens to be one of them, but so many people struggle with chronic illness. I know that I'm not alone on this journey. Actually, my mom has fibromyalgia as well. But there's more than there's that. There's lupus, there's rheumatoid arthritis, uh, diabetes, heart disease. There's so many people who live with chronic illnesses. So I thought that today will be a great day to talk about that because there is such a weight that comes with living with a chronic illness. There's a lot of adjustments that comes with it. So I want to have that discussion today. So if any of my J-Bugs who's watching right now, if you have a chronic illness, if you live with a chronic illness, drop it in the comments for me. If you feel comfortable enough, drop it in the comments for me. But living with a chronic illness can make one feel hopeless and helpless a lot of the times because you're in constant pain. At least for me, I am with fibromyalgia. You have doctor's appointments, you have medicines, endless symptoms that sometimes you didn't even know were symptoms of your chronic illness, right? So it is a lot to deal with. So I always try to highlight what fibromyalgia is. So at 16, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. It is a chronic pain disease where you have widespread pain throughout your body due to overactive nerves. It has actually just been qualified as an autoimmune disease as well, and it has no cure. So most chronic illnesses have no cure. It's something that we live with daily. And so on my journey of living with fibromyalgia, it has been extremely difficult from having flare-ups to not being able to walk, not being able to talk sometimes, having to learn to walk and talk all over again because I had a period of time that I couldn't do any of those things, needing constant assistance at one point, having flare-ups that last a month, sometimes to 3 months, sometimes being on a walker. So it's been a journey. And if you've been with me throughout Journeying with Janay, you have seen that. So it comes with a lot. And I'm sure I just have fibromyalgia, but I know other people who deal with lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or any type of autoimmune disease, that it is a lot to live with a chronic illness. It's a lot of challenges. Most of the time, day-to-day life for us is a challenge. Just getting out of the bed is a challenge. So my warriors, my shirt says a fibromyalgia warrior, but whatever you go through, know that you are not your illness. That's the first thing that I do want to say today, because we can easily become so overwhelmed, right? We can become so overwhelmed with the chronic pain, with the not knowing what to do to treat it, not having a cure, medications not helping, maybe doctors not listening to us. Even to get to a diagnosis, sometimes you don't know what's going on with your body. You know that you're not well, but you don't know what it is, because most of the time chronic illnesses are hard to diagnose. So the first thing I want you to know that you are not your illness, which is why I entitled this episode Living with Chronic Illness. We have to learn not to label ourselves as whatever our illness is, because when we do that, we talked about negative self-talk last week. We put those negative labels on, and then we in turn take on an identity. For so long, I felt like the sick girl. So that was actually a thinking error, which is the negative labeling. So know that you are not your illness. Your illness is a part of your journey, but it is not your whole story. It is not who you are. And also know that your illness does not define you or does not make you your worth diminish. For so long, I struggle with my own value because I'm like, okay, who will think that I'm worthy or valuable with this chronic illness? So I need you to know that your worth and your value and who you are does not change because of the illness that you do live with. And another thing that I want to remind you of, a lot of us, we feel guilt for the illnesses we have. How many of y'all, if you are on here and you struggle with chronic illness, you feel so guilty? And let me stop you right there. You did not ask for this illness. You did not go out there and like stand in the line and be like, hey, I want chronic illness. I want to deal with chronic pain. I want this. This is not something that anybody necessarily wants or subscribes to. Most of the time it catches us off guard, right? So the guilt that we feel, and most of us feel guilty because we feel like a burden to people who have to be caretakers for us in moments of flare-ups. We feel like we can't contribute to our families financially as much as we could, because some people with chronic illness can't work, right? So you can't hold down a 9-to-5 job. So now you feel like I'm a burden financially, not only physically if you have to take care of me, but now I'm a burden financially. Then you feel like a burden, or you feel a sense of guilt when it's time to go places, but you're in a flare-up, or you're not feeling well, or you have to make accommodations just to get to the place, right? So a lot of us walk around with so much guilt, and we harbor so much guilt, and we feel like a burden. But tonight I pray that through this episode and the coping mechanisms that I'm about to share with you, that lessons for you, that you know that you are still worthy of love, that you know that you are worthy to be cared for, and most importantly, that you know that God will send those people. God will insulate you with the right people who will love you, who will care for you, who will be there with you through flare-ups, through good times, through bad times, through hospital stays. He will insulate you, and most of all, he will provide for you. And I'm going back to that because I know most of us with chronic illnesses, it's hard to hold down a 9-to-5 job, because they're not going to understand that I might be okay one day, but the next day I'm not, and then I might not be okay for a couple of weeks after that, right? It's hard for them to understand that. So it's hard to hold down to be gainfully employed, should I say, sometimes. And so you then begin to feel like, okay, God, what am I going to do? So then some people who have chronic illnesses, they're on disability, but that disability is not enough, right? So I need you to know and to trust that even in the midst of times that look so bleak, and you have so much despair, remember that God is always your source. Whatever income you have is a resource, but God is always your source, and that he will always provide for you. So I pray tonight that you feel like less of a burden, and know that you're not a burden. God will grace you. I heard somebody say this: God will grace the people that come into your life to handle everything that comes along with you. So that means that he has graced people to help you. He has graced and ordained people to help provide for you. Those things, those provisions, those needs are going to be met. So moving to ways to cope with chronic illness, because most of us, our everyday lives are filled with pain. Our everyday lives are filled with adjustments, and then it morphs into depression, it morphs into anxiety. Most autoimmune diseases, part of them, especially fibromyalgia, comes with not only the physical symptoms, but the mental and emotional symptoms as well, of depression, of anxiety, of suicidal thoughts. Those things are very real, and it comes along with most chronic illnesses. And so for so long, I did not have a way to cope. I didn't know what to do to be an escape, right? So many of us need an escape, or a way to cope, or a way to get through our day-to-day lives, knowing that we have those things in place that will help us continue to live with our chronic illness, but not just live with it, to thrive even though we're living with that chronic illness. So these are my 7 ways that I cope with chronic illness, and I hope that they help you all as well. So of course, my number 1 is prayer. I always say every week, God is my source, but he's also my foundation. My faith is my foundation. So having faith and having prayer and having God, without him, child, I wouldn't make it. So prayer, knowing that I have someone that I can talk to, someone who is bigger than my illness, someone who has the power to heal me from my illness, even though man says there's no cure. I know that I have that in God. So prayer and faith for me is so imperative. If I start a day without prayer, I can tell the difference in my day. So it helps me in those moments of pain, but especially just throughout my day-to-day life, prayer helps. So that's one way to help cope. When you're in the midst of those flare-ups, in those most painful times, in those uncertain times, going through procedures, all of those things is so taxing on our, not just our physical health, but our mental health and our emotional health as well. So we have to do those things to take care of our souls and take care of our spirits. So for me, that's prayer. Then the second way to cope with chronic illness is having an outlet. I can't tell you what that outlet has to be for you. I can tell you one of my outlets is therapy. Going to therapy has helped me so much to manage the emotions and to manage the thoughts and to manage my mental state that comes along with my chronic illness. Going to therapy, I actually posted about it earlier, a clip from a previous Mental Health Mondays, how therapy is such an important tool. It's given me the language that I need to be able to express myself. It's helped me see and get to the root of things. It's giving me things like 7-11 breathing, that when I'm in the midst of a flare up or in the midst of an overthinking spiral, that I could sit there and I could just breathe and bring myself down and calm myself down and get to a clear space of thinking and feeling and being, and just clear my mind. So therapy has been so important to give me those tools, to remind me that it's okay, to remind me that even though you may feel broken, or even though you are living with this chronic illness, that it does not define you. Therapy has been one of the most amazing tools for me over the past few years, that has helped me to cope with my chronic illness. So the third one, which is extremely hard for me, which I'm still been trying to be consistent with, is diet and exercise. And I know so many of us are probably tired of hearing, well, you have to exercise, you have to watch your diet. When you're dealing with a chronic illness, some of us are emotional eaters. That is our way of escape, or our way of dealing with it, right? But our diet and our exercise is so important, especially with autoimmune diseases. What we are putting into our bodies is so important. So knowing that, finding what works for you, finding what diet works for you, finding what foods work for you, and that is a journey in itself. But you have to do the work. I always say that healing does not work without you working it. We always think about healing in the sense of, oh, healing comes from God. And yes, God has the power to heal, but you have to be an active participant in your own healing journey. You cannot just go to the doctor and then don't implement any of the things that he says that can help you. So you have to be an active participant in your healing journey. And part of that is your diet. Part of that is putting good, clean, healthy foods into your body. Part of that is doing your research so you can know what foods can possibly cause you to flare up, what foods to stay away from. Now, for me, living in South Louisiana, that is extremely difficult, okay? Because we have so much good food, but it takes that discipline, right? So that we can make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do for our bodies. And then exercise. Exercise can be hard, but again, it's about finding what works for you and knowing that what works for others, even though they may have the same chronic illness that you have, may not actually work for you, and that is okay. And it moves me into my next point, which is learning to educate yourself on your chronic illness. You cannot just go to the doctor and get this diagnosis and that's it. It don't stop there. You have to learn to educate yourself on your chronic illness. And the reason that you need to educate yourself is so you can know your diet, your exercise, what you can be doing to help yourself outside of just taking medication. But the key component to educating yourself is so you can then in turn advocate for yourself. I talked about this a few months ago when I had my surgery. I had to learn how to educate myself so I can advocate for myself. You can't just go to the doctor and expect them to have all the answers. They see so many patients a day, right? And some doctors are amazing and they take the time and they remember you and they learn everything. But to some doctors, unfortunately, you are just another patient and another number. So you have to learn to educate yourself about your illness so then you can go into those appointments and into different spaces and advocate for yourself so that you're not just shunned, right? So that you're not just a guinea pig for this new drug that's come out. So you need to educate yourself so you can then advocate for yourself. Living with chronic illness, you are your biggest advocate. If you do not advocate for yourself, nobody else will. That is something my mom taught me early on. I was diagnosed at 16, and she was like, I need you to learn how to advocate for yourself and how to do the things that you need to do for yourself, because just because you have this illness, the world's not going to take pity on you. It's going to keep going. So I'm going to share that advice with you tonight. Educate yourself and know what you need about yourself. Know what your body needs, so then you can advocate for yourself. So then you're not just told anything, or you're not becoming a guinea pig trying all of these new medications that may have side effects that will make your health worse instead of better. So learn what you need to learn about your illness, and then in turn advocate for yourself. Do not be afraid to tell your doctor, I don't want to take that medicine. I know what the side effects are, and I'm not willing to put that in my body. Don't be afraid to even have to switch physicians. Don't be afraid to say, okay, I don't feel like my needs are being met here. I don't feel like I'm being cared for here like I should be. I need to find somebody else. I need to research another specialist, or I need to research a natural route to help myself. Be your own greatest advocate. That is just not with chronic illness. That is in life, period. If you do not learn to open up your mouth and advocate for yourself, people will constantly run over you, right? And then that moves us into learning how to manage your stressors. Learning how to do things that bring you joy. With chronic illness, it's so heavy that we have to be intentional, and not just intentional, but intentionally consistent about doing things that, number one, limits our stress, and then number two, brings us joy. Just because you have a chronic illness does not mean that you have to be stuck in the bed and in the house every day. Just because you have a chronic illness don't mean that you don't need to get up and get yourself together, put on some cute clothes, and get out the house sometimes. There's a quote that says, when you look good, you feel good. And sometimes it's a thing with our psyche. If even for me, I'm like, okay, girl, you need to get up out this bed, put some clothes on, put a little makeup on, put some lashes on, and go do something. So I'm telling you that tonight, get up and do things that bring you joy. No, you might not be able to do all the things that you used to do before, but there are still things that you can find that can bring you joy. And in turn, that limits your stress, right? With chronic illness, we have to learn how to limit our stressors. We need to, number one, know what our stressors are, then learn how to limit the stress that we bring into our lives. Because adding more stress on top of a chronic illness is just like adding gasoline to a fire. What it's going to do, it's going to spark the fire and make that fire bigger. So you need to learn how to manage your stressors, but also learn how to do what brings you joy. Learn to live. Know that even though you are living with a chronic illness, you do not get to stop living. Some days you will be in the bed. Some days you will have to be in the house. Sometimes you will have a flare. All of those things are very, very true and very real and very valid. But that does not mean to stop living. Some chronic illnesses are so hard to accept, right? But we have to grow to a place of acceptance and then learn how to live with it. As I said at the beginning, you are not your illness. It is a part of your story. So learn how to live with it. Learn how to do the things that bring you joy, which moves into my next point of not only knowing your stressors and how to manage your stress, but knowing not to overextend yourself. It goes back into the guilt that we talked about earlier. There are events that I've missed because of my chronic illness that I will never get back. There's time that I miss with family and friends because of my chronic illness. There are things that you are going to miss, but you need to know not to overextend yourself. Yeah, sometimes you may have to push yourself out the bed to go and do it, but do not push yourself past your limits and in turn break yourself. You have to know what your limits are. And that was so hard for me to accept, because you always hear people, the sky is the limit. Don't put limitations on yourself. You don't have limits. When in all actuality, we do have limits, right? It is only so much that a healthy person can do before their body gives out, because you need rest, you need rejuvenation, you need hydration, all of those things. So when you live with a chronic illness, you have to know what your limits are. You have to know that, okay, I might have to schedule my days out. I might not be able to do everything that I want to do in this one day, but that's why God gives us 6 more during the week. So you have to learn, this is my limit for this moment, or this is my limit for today, and I have to not overextend myself, because when you live with a chronic illness and you overextend yourself, most of the time we make ourselves sicker and not better, right? I know we want to show up to everything. I know we want to be there for people. I know we don't want to miss things. It's hard when we miss things. We feel guilt. We feel sadness. However, we have to get to a place that we accept that we're going to miss some things sometimes. We have to get to a place that we accept our limits. So then in turn, we can operate in those, in the strength that we have, and still live a full life. You can still live a full life. You just have to know your limits and know that to not push yourself past your limits, and know that when you are pushing yourself past your limits, and oftentimes it's for other people, in turn you're hurting yourself more than you're helping. Yeah, to them it may seem like, oh, it's helpful and she's there and I'm so glad she showed up, but you have to know your limits. And then number 7 ways to cope is having a strong village. I cannot state enough how important that is. You have to, and that's not just for anybody with a chronic illness, that's for in life, period. We have to have strong villages. It's always said that it takes a village to raise a child. But I always say, yes, it does. But having a strong village as an adult is just as important as having that strong village when you were a child. You have to surround yourself with people who will love you, who will encourage you, who will care for you, who will hold you accountable. So having a strong village to lean on, having somebody to talk to, having somebody to be there for you, having somebody to care for you, having somebody to come to doctor's appointments with you, having somebody that will check on you if they haven't heard from you in a while to make sure that you're okay. Having someone to hold you accountable to say, hold on, girl, you say you was trying to watch your diet. Are you supposed to be eating these or this, that? Is this good for you? Should you be doing those things? Having somebody to remind you not to overextend yourself. Having that village matters. Learning to insulate yourself with a strong village instead of isolating yourself matters. Over this last year or so, I've been practicing insulation over isolation, and I see the difference that is made in my life. So know that having a strong village matters. And then for my people who are on here today who may not have chronic illness, but one of your family members, one of your friends, maybe your significant other, maybe your parent, whoever that you know who have a chronic illness, I want to give y'all some ways that y'all can support us, because y'all support is so important, right? Going back to that last coping mechanism that I gave of having a strong village. Y'all support is important. And some people, they want to support but don't know how to support. And then there's some people who just don't understand the magnitude of what it is to live with a chronic illness. So on whichever side of the spectrum you find yourself on, I want to share some ways that you can help. The first way, and this is for everybody, period, is to be understanding and to be kind. Be understanding and be kind. Most people with chronic illness face hurdles and challenges on a daily basis that a healthy person can never imagine, right? We overcome things that most people don't have to overcome in a day. So you being understanding towards them, you being kind to them, you're trying to extend a helping hand to them, is so much better than you saying, oh girl, you sick again. Oh girl, you having a flare up again. Oh, this happened. We already have those thoughts in our heads. We don't need them to be said to us. We don't need people to come around and be negative Nancy's and remind us of the things that maybe our illness has already taken away from us. We need those understanding and kind and positive people who will encourage us. So number 1, be understanding, be kind. Number 2 is ask instead of assume. If you don't understand what that person's illness is, ask them about it. If you don't know how that person is feeling, ask them about it. If you want that person to come somewhere, but then you think, oh, they might not be able to do that because of their chronic illness, ask them. Don't just assume, right? You know what we say assuming makes out of you, right? Okay, so don't just assume. Ask the person. Ask, can you help? But don't just assume that just because they have this chronic illness, they can't do this or do that, or I can't invite them there, or they won't do the things that I want to do. Ask instead of assume. You never know what the answer may be. And the asking instead of assuming goes hand in hand with the third one, which is to educate yourself. If you have someone in your family, especially if you have a significant other with chronic illness, educate yourself. Educate yourself, not just through that person by asking instead of assuming, but do your own research so you can help them. So some things that you may research and find they may not know about. So educating yourself about that person's chronic illness can also help them. The fourth one is to help them during times of flare-ups. Most people who have chronic illnesses, especially autoimmune diseases, you feel the symptoms of your disease every day, right? You feel the symptoms of your illness every day. But there are moments that you have flare-ups that you're sicker than other times. Those are the times, village, that you step up. That you know if that person is stuck in the bed and can't get out, that you say, hey, did you eat today? Can I bring you something? Do you need help cleaning your house? If they have children, can I take your kids to school or pick them up from school or get them to whatever extracurricular activities they have? Make sure that you extend helping hands to them, especially during times of flare-ups, because those are the times that people who fight chronic illnesses need their village the most, during those times of flare-ups. So make yourself available. And the very last one is don't alienate them. Chronic illness can feel like such a lonely, lonely, lonely journey. It can feel like such a heavy journey. It feels like no one understands because their bodies are not going through it. And then when you meet somebody who has fibromyalgia or lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever condition you have, you finally feel seen because finally somebody understands. Finally, I'm not crazy. Finally, I'm not finding another symptom to add on to the laundry list of symptoms that I already experience in a day. So we already feel so lonely. We already feel so isolated because most people don't understand what we go through. So make sure that as their village, you don't alienate them. Make sure you still invite them to go places. Even if they have to tell you, I'm sorry, I can't make it because I'm not feeling well. It's that you still extended the invite. And that's what I'm so grateful for with my village. They will still extend the invite. They'll be like, hey, if you're feeling up to it, come to this. If you're not feeling up to it, that's okay too. But don't alienate them. Don't say, oh, because they had this chronic illness, I'm shunning them and I'm not going to include them in the things that we used to do pre-diagnosis. Because for most people with chronic illness, there's a pre-diagnosis and a post-diagnosis. Pre-diagnosis where your life was quote unquote normal and you did everything normal and you were able to move around and do the things that you wanted to do. Then there's post-diagnosis. Now I'm trying to figure out now how to live with this. So treat those people just as you treated them in their pre-diagnosis stage of their lives. Still invite them, still include them, still do the thoughtful things. Don't treat us like we're fragile and we're going to break, right? We're not fragile and we're not going to break. We do have a chronic illness and we may need a little more patience and a little more understanding, a little more caring. But we're not people that's fragile and just going to break if you go to hug us, if you go to touch us or whatever. Make sure that you do not alienate them. Make sure that you still treat them with the same loving, caring, kindness, and respectfulness that you treated them with before that illness. So those are ways that you can support them. And the way that I didn't have listed, thank you God for reminding me, the most important way that you can to support somebody with chronic illness is to always cover them in prayer. So grateful for my village that some of them, they know without me having to even tell them that I'm having a flare up. They'll just send me a text, I'm covering you in prayer. Covering someone in prayer, whether they have a chronic illness or not, is the most pure form of love that there is. So cover them. They are fighting battles. Again, I'm going to say this. They are fighting battles and overcoming obstacles on a daily basis that a healthy person could never imagine. So make sure that you cover them in prayer. Make sure that you undergird them in prayer. Even if you send them a prayer or if you call and pray with them, but make sure that you are covering them. Not only cover their physical state for their symptoms, but make sure that you cover their mind and their emotions. Because I don't know about y'all who's on here who will watch this later who's living with chronic pain, but most of the time it's not always the physical pain that we deal with. It's the mental and emotional pain that gets us the most. It's the mental and emotional pain that we oftentimes are good at hiding, right? Most of our chronic illnesses brings about depression. It brings about despair. It brings about hopelessness. But there is still a God who sits on the throne who is bigger than that illness. There is still so much life, I'm going to say it again, to live. Yes, you may have to learn how to live it a different way. Yes, you may have to adjust your expectations sometimes. Yes, you may have different limits, so you have to pace yourself. But there is still so much life to live. Know that, I'm going to say it again, you are not your illness. It is a part of your journey, but it is not your story. Your illness does not make you any less valuable, any less worthy, any less worthy of love, any less worthy of the blessings of God, right? It does not make you any less worthy. What your illness has done, it's come into your life. Oftentimes unexpected. Most of us don't want it. I've said all my life that if fibromyalgia was a person, I want to meet them in the streets and square up with them. Okay, it's the half hood side of my personality to go along with the half holy. But I would love to meet them in the streets and square up with them. If our chronic illness was a person, I'm pretty sure most of y'all feel that way. You would love to fight them because of the things that is taken away from you. But what Journey and what Janay did 5 years ago is it reminded me that even though my chronic illness may have taken some things away from me, may have left me with pain, may have left me having some limits, what it did not do is it did not take away my purpose. Matter of fact, it magnified what my purpose is. Had it not been for that 16-year-old girl who was in pain, for that 16-year-old girl who couldn't finish high school normally, for that 16-year-old girl who had to learn how to walk and talk again, had it not been for that diagnosis of fibromyalgia, Journeying with Janay will not be here. This Janay will not be sitting in front of you. The Janay who is the now mental health advocate would not be sitting in front of you, because it pushed me to take care of my mental health. It pushed me closer to God. So even though it can be burdensome and frustrating at times, I wouldn't change my journey. I wouldn't change having fibromyalgia because of what it has opened me up to. My pain has now been processed, and through that pain being processed, it has given me purpose, and that purpose has now given me a platform which I sit on tonight. So know that your life is not over because of your chronic illness. Know that it is not who you are. It's a small part of your journey, but not your story. But most importantly, know that you will continue to live and thrive in spite of your chronic illness. You will continue to walk in purpose. You will find your place. You will be able to be an encourager for other people. You will turn into an advocate. I always say I'm a mental health advocate, but I'm also a fibromyalgia advocate. I try to bring awareness to it. I try to bring awareness to living with chronic illness. So know that it will give you the pain. I'm going to say it again. The pain is processing you. And that process will give you a purpose. And through that purpose, it will give you a platform. Everybody's platform is not the same. God will reveal what it is and what your purpose is. But I pray that through me sharing that part of my journey with you and this part of my journey with you on National Fibromyalgia Awareness Day, that it encourages you and allow you to know that you are not your illness. And as with every episode, we end it with an affirmation and a prayer. So today's affirmation says, I am not my illness. Sickness is not my story. It's simply just a part of my journey. I will acknowledge my feelings as it pertains to my illness, seek the necessary help, and find things to help me feel better. I will not push myself past my limits and break myself. I will rest when needed, be gentle with myself, and live a full life. Although man says that there is no cure for my illness, I still trust that God can heal me. And now that we've affirmed it, let's seal it with a prayer. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this platform of Mental Health Mondays. Thank you for everyone who's watching live and everyone who will watch later. God, for all of those who are on here tonight who are dealing with chronic illness, dear God, I ask that you cover, that you give strength where we weak, that you heal us, dear God, that you allow us to find purpose even through the pain, that you give us the tools that we need to be able to process the pain. God, that you surround us and insulate us with healthy villages. God, that you remind us even in moments that it seems hopeless, that there is still hope, that you renew our strength daily, that when we are weary and heavy laden, that we can come to you and be honest with you, and that you will give us rest for our souls. God, right now, allow us to find purpose in the pain. Remind us, just as Romans 8:28 says, that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to their purpose. So God, right now, we know that even though our chronic illness may not be a good thing, that you can still work it for our good and for your glory. So God, right now, we ask that again, that you just wrap us in your arms, that you comfort us as only you can. And most importantly, God, we declare through faith that even though man says that there is no cure, that you still have the power to heal us in the hem of your garment. We thank you and we praise you for it all. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Well, my J-Bugs, thank you again for coming along with me on this phase of my journey. Thank you for helping me turn pain into purpose over the last 5 years. Again, happy 5th year anniversary to Journeying with Janay. Thank y'all for being on this journey with me. I am so grateful for y'all. If there is no J-Bugs, there's no Journeying with Janay. Without your love, without your support, without your engagement, there will be no Journeying with Janay. So thank you so much for that. And until next week, I pray that you stay mentally and emotionally well. This episode will be on my YouTube channel tomorrow, so make sure that if you're watching on YouTube to like, share, comment, and subscribe. So stay mentally and emotionally well until I see y'all next week. I love y'all. Good night.